We are required to serve God with joy. But sometimes that's a bit hard. When we see in the world there's injustice or anti-Semitism, it seems like the world's a bit of a jungle. To answer this question, we can look in Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, in the 2nd chapter, where there's a Mishnah which tells the story of Hillel, that he was once standing by a river and he saw a skull floating there. He recognized that the skull actually had belonged to a criminal who used to steal and then murder his victims by drowning them. And he addressed the skull and he said, "Because you drowned others, therefore you were drowned." God acts in a way of midah keneged midah, measure for measure. The same punishment that this person inflicted upon his victims, the same punishment, the same type of punishment, ultimately was inflicted upon himself. God caused that to happen. And then Hillel went on and he said, ultimately, those who drowned you, they will be drowned. Because this criminal should have only been judged by a Jewish court in a proper way, according to God's design of how reward and punishment are to be given in this world. But God acts behind the scenes in a way of divine providence, and he caused this criminal to come across people of a similar background. They saw him, they stole from him, and ultimately they killed him, they drowned him. They were not allowed to do that. This person was culpable, was liable. But God gave to a people of a similar background the chance to repent, or he gives those type of people the chance to continue to become more liable or more culpable. And that's what they chose. And therefore, ultimately, they will be punished in the same way that they caused a punishment, that they caused this person to drown. Ultimately, they will be drowned. But the Arizal explains this Mishnah in a deeper way. As we know that Judaism accepts the idea of reincarnation, and the Arizal, who had divine inspiration, he lived around 500 years ago, explained this Mishnah like this. Hillel was actually a reincarnation of Moshe, of Moses. As we know, they had similar qualities. They were both humble, and they both lived 120 years. Hillel saw this skull floating on the river, and he recognized that this was Pharaoh's skull, the original Pharaoh who had enslaved the Jewish people in Egypt. And he addresses the skull, and he says, you tried to drown the Jewish boys in the river Nile. Ultimately, you were drowned. You received a similar punishment, measure for measure. But then he doesn't address the skull anymore, and he goes on, as the Arizal explains it, to address the Jewish people. Hillel addresses the Jewish people, and he says, ultimately, now, there are those who want to hurt us. There are those who want to cause pain and drown us and do other things to us. Ultimately, they will be drowned. Ultimately, they will be punished in a similar way to what they want to do to us. God is in control of the world. Pharaoh was a terrible king. He tried to murder. He tried to cause us pain. But ultimately, even though he was one of the most greatest and most powerful rulers, he received the same punishment that he wanted to inflict upon us. The same is true of the world now. Those who wish to inflict pain will ultimately receive a similar punishment which they want to do. And obviously the other way is also true. Those who want to do good and do good will receive a greater reward. And this we will see, as the Rebbe has told us, very soon in when Mashiach comes, when the ultimate Redeemer comes. We will see how the world is not a jungle, has not been a jungle, but is actually a garden of God. May it come now.